Hello aspirants. Looking at current affairs for 20th July, the news items picked up from the Hindu newspaper are these 18. We'll look at them in detail. The first one, Supreme Court wonders whether privacy could be an absolute right. So yesterday we saw a 9-judge constitutional bench would be established to look into the matter of right to privacy, because the last judgment which was given by the Supreme Court on this issue was an 8-judge bench, and it had declared that right to privacy is not a fundamental right. So now this is again reviewing that order as such of the Supreme Court. A 9-judge constitutional bench has been established and it is looking into this question. And on the first day of this hearing, that is the news we are seeing, the Supreme Court has questioned whether privacy could be an absolute right. So an absolute right means that a right which has no restrictions. So of course, none of the fundamental rights actually are absolute rights. Even right to life is not an absolute right, because there are reasonable restrictions imposed. Even life can be taken away by the government, by law. So through a law. So if there's capital punishment, your life is also not, right to life is also not an absolute right. Capital punishment means right to, death sentence as such. So that is what is the thing, that there is no absolute right as such. So this is the question which is being raised in the Supreme Court now about right to privacy, and the Supreme Court has said rightly that right to privacy is not absolute and cannot prevent the state from making laws imposing reasonable restrictions on citizens. So of course, right to privacy should be upheld, but with reasonable restrictions, privacy can also be restricted. So this is the viewpoint of the Supreme Court as we see on the first day here. So attempt to define right to privacy, the Supreme Court's viewpoint, the judge has here stated that this will do more harm than good. Because if you define right to privacy, then you'll be restricting it to the definition. And other things cannot be included because that's not part of the definition. So that's what it means, that defining will do more harm than good. So this is what the 9-judge bench judges are also having a viewpoint. So decision on whether right to privacy is a fundamental or not will be taken by this 9-judge bench, and then the question of whether Aadhaar is violating right to privacy or not will be looked into, whether Aadhaar is unconstitutional. So if right to privacy is to be upheld, then Aadhaar is violating right to privacy and it will be declared unconstitutional. So these are the points which we'll be seeing later. Another point, Justice Chandrachud, who is also part of this 9-judge bench, he has stated that how can right to privacy be spoken of presently, because right to privacy in this age of technology is surrendered by the citizens. So when you are accessing technology by various technology providers, you are giving part of your information. So there is no right to privacy, absolute right to privacy as such possible to, that it is absolutely protected. But then the point is that it is your wish. You on your own free will, if you are giving information to someone, is fine. So that is also a point raised. You should remember there is also a case on WhatsApp going on, that WhatsApp is actually violating right to privacy as such too, when it is sharing information of WhatsApp users with Facebook. So that was a deal which was between WhatsApp and Facebook. On that, a petition has been filed in the Supreme Court in India by an Indian, a PIL petition as such too, that this is violating right to privacy. That how can one user's information be shared by any other company? So that was there. In that case, actually, the judiciary had also upheld that it is free service. WhatsApp you are using for free. If you are not accepting that policy of WhatsApp, then you are free to leave. You can delete your account. And it had told WhatsApp, the judiciary, that if any user is deleting the account, then all the information of that user should be deleted and not be shared. So this is the dilemma which is there regarding right to privacy in this realm of technology, which is being pointed out by Justice Chandrachud here too. So that is there, and he's also saying that right to privacy cannot be linked to data protection. So data protection is another aspect beyond that, that somebody is collecting all your data. Then how protected your data is with that authority. Here the government is collecting biometric information along with other information regarding citizens. Then what about data protection is also a concern, but the judge here is saying that these two aspects are separate and should not be linked. So this is there. So here are the details given as such. So this is also the viewpoint of the Supreme Court here, again stated that right to privacy definition will do more harm than good and other things. Then the next news item is backing for draft law against lynching. So this is a draft law which has been formalized for action against mob lynching. So this is called MASUKA, Manav Suraksha Kanun. So this is an organization called National Campaign Against Mob Lynching. So this has drafted this law, and various political parties across the spectrum have shown support to it, like Congress, CPM, Aam Aadmi Party, RJD, JDU, even Samajwadi Party, BSP, NCP have supported this legislation as such too, and they have said that in the meeting they have said that we'll first ask the government to bring the draft law in the parliament. If government does not do this, if government fails to do this, then MASUKA, this law which has been formulated by this organization, will be placed before the parliament as a private member's bill. So you should know there are two types of bills. One is the government's bill and the private member's bill. So private member's bill is a bill which is not introduced by any minister. So when minister introduces a bill, means minister is part of the executive. So when the government's initiative is taken, that's what, when a minister introduces a bill, then of course there are more chances of it being passed because the government holds majority in the Lok Sabha at least. So that is there. So private members' bills generally have not seen the light of the day. Very few private members' bills have been passed in the history of Indian Parliament since the implementation of the constitution as such. So that is why this is a point that they will introduce it as a private member's bill only if the government fails to draft a legislation on this issue, mob lynching. So this is regarding MASUKA 2, Manav Suraksha Kanun, the major provisions under this. So mob lynching would become a non-bailable offence which will be punishable with a sentence up to life imprisonment. So mob lynching is actually resulting in death of a person by a group of people attacking that person. So lynched means lynched to death as such. Then this another point which is there is that there should be an independent judicial inquiry to probe cases of mob lynching, and if found guilty, then the local SHO should be suspended as such if even a judicial inquiry is not initiated. So this is there. Then the next news item is buffalo meat exports fall 4.35% in April-May. So this is based on a question in the Parliament as such, the response which has been given by the Commerce Minister. So yes, exports have fallen for meat as such, and this is despite the legislation which had been brought. It was not a legislation, it was actually a rules. If you remember, Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act. Under that, rules were brought out by the government recently, which was banning sale of cattle for slaughter. So this was the particular aspect which was coming forth in this rules, and this has actually been stayed by the Supreme Court. So this is on hold. This cannot be implemented presently, those rules which we have spoken of. Even we have seen this, that in the Supreme Court, government also admitted that they have received various viewpoints on these rules, and they are planning to amend it, modify it. So these rules are presently not functional, yet we are seeing that buffalo meat export as such in the country has fallen. Compared to last year, it is 4.35% fall. Then the next news item is Naveen's plea to center on Paika rebellion. So this is regarding Paika rebellion of 1817. So this is a demand has been made by Odisha Chief Minister Mr. Naveen Patnaik to Union Home Minister that Paika rebellion be declared as the first war of Indian independence. What we study as first war of Indian independence is the revolt of 1857, the Sepoy Mutiny. But actually this Paika rebellion took place 40 years before the Sepoy Mutiny too, and the Chief Minister claims that it's not just that it has happened before the revolt of 1857, it was in 1817, but also the nature of this rebellion was also a struggle against the rule of British East India Company. So it was a well-organized, broad-based rebellion against the British rule. So it's also popularly known as Paika Bidro in Odisha. So this is having its 200th anniversary presently. So 1817, 2017 is actually being celebrated. There's a year-long celebration of Paika rebellion which will be initiated soon. So that is why on that sidelines, Naveen Patnaik, the Chief Minister of Odisha, is asking the government that it should declare Paika rebellion as the first war of independence. This we have discussed earlier too. So it's again coming up in news. So you can see the details here about Paika rebellion too. So paika is actually an Oriya word which means warrior. So it's a style of fighting which is known as paika as such. Paika akhada is also a term as such. So this paika rebellion as such took place, in which many government buildings were burnt down and the officials fled this region. The British commander of one detachment was killed during one of these battles of the paikas, and paikas managed to capture 2 bases as such during this rebellion. So revolt lasted for 1.5 years, but of course it was brought down by the colonial powers by force. So this is the Paika rebellion as such. Then the next news item is Karnataka in no hurry to decide state flag. So Karnataka has decided to give legal status to its Kannada flag. So this Kannada flag actually was created by Mr. Ma Ramanurthy. He's given this nickname Kannad Veer Senani. So he was the one who formulated this organization Kannad Paksh, and he had designed this flag, Kannad flag. In 1918 was when he was born. So it's birth centenary year, and in that context Karnataka wants to give legal status to this Kannad flag. It is this 2-colored flag. You can see this is the red and yellow flag as such. So this proposal has been put forth, but then there are concerns regarding a state having its own flag. But then the minister here says that states have their own anthems. There is a national anthem too. So there are no restrictions as such. He calls it a legal gray area, that there is nowhere that it is stated it is not allowed. So that is why, and also the Karnataka minister says that the government is in no hurry to go ahead with this, and it has no intention to create a controversy. But this Kannad flag issue is going on, so you should know. Then the next news item is Ministry Niti Aayog moved privatization of select services in district hospitals. So Niti Aayog and the Health Ministry have together developed this 140-page document, which is a privatization project of the health sector. So this is a document, it says it has been prepared in consultation with the World Bank too. So this Niti Aayog report as such is saying that there can be a single private partner or single consortium of private partners who can bid for space in district level hospitals, especially in 2 and 3 tier cities. So this is a proposal being put forth that there can be a section privatized. So this privatization will be provided for on a 30-year lease as such. This is also a public-private partnership, because these are already district hospitals, means public hospitals as such, where private sector will be allowed to function on a lease basis, and this will take care of only 3 non-communicable diseases. So only for this purpose, and these 3 diseases are cardiac, pulmonary and cancer related. So these are the 3 diseases for which there can be a public-private partnership. So model contract has been prepared by Niti Aayog, and you should remember that health, actually the state government has a say in the health sector. So here this model contract has been sent out to the state governments. So this has already been done on June 5, and they had been given a 2 weeks window to furnish their responses, and the states of course have furnished the responses, and this draft document has now been released. So this you can see, the state government can give viability gap funding or a one-time seed money also to private players to set up the infrastructure within the district hospital. So this funding can also be provided by the government. They will share ambulance services, means public-private functioning together, means ambulance services, blood banks and mortuary services can be shared also. But then there has been criticism against this proposal, because it is stated that there will be no reserved beds and no quota of beds for free services in these facilities. So what is there in the private sector, there will be no reservation and quota as such for free services, because public health there are negligible of free services which are provided. So this is a point which is being raised as such too, and also a question is raised that what is the purpose of handing over critical public asset without gaining anything much in return. So the private sector will function and private sector will sell the services and they would earn. So what is the government providing for, and why is it giving away its location for the private sector to function? So this is a question being raised here, and it says, it has also been stated that Niti Aayog has no locus standi to make health policy. It's actually a state subject in India. So why is Niti Aayog making such a policy? It replaced Planning Commission saying that it will bring in cooperative federalism. So it's just an advisory body as such too, and now it is taking, making major policy recommendations in various sectors. So here this is another point being brought forth, and it is stated that this will take the country much back and will never be able to achieve universal health coverage. So if there is privatization and they will make profits and function here, then it will result in further those who can will get the services, others will be left out. So this is going back actually. So it's actually, there is this one suggestion in the report also that only BPL patients and those in insurance schemes will be able to access free care services. So in the public sector. So this is also again excluding. So why is the government excluding population? Rather, it should be including more population and providing them health services. So this is there. So these are the details again given here, what we just discussed. Then the next news item is extra privileges for foreigners on Indian trains. So the Indian Railway has come up with a proposal, and it's actually implementing it with immediate effect, that it will provide for this foreign tourist quota of 8 berths in each of first and second class AC coaches, and the foreigners can book these tickets 1 year in advance through e-banking. E-ticketing. So this is what has been provided for. There's already a foreign tourist quota, but it is minimal, and now it is allowed to be booked 1 year in advance, and they can also go for general quota also. So there is no restriction that they should go only under foreign tourist quota. And in general quota, Indians are permitted to have a booking in advance only 4 months earlier. So 4 months in advance booking can be done, and for foreigners it would be 1 year in advance which would be allowed, and there will be reservation of these berths as such too. So it is stated that tickets for important trains actually get waitlisted in the country as soon as the counter opens up. Also, a sizable number of berths are blocked for Tatkal and emergency quota for VIPs. So then there are very limited number of berths which are available as such too. And further now, foreign tourist quotas being extended and benefits being given. This will be on the provisions which should be there for the citizens in the country being handed over and being there used for foreign tourists. And here foreign tourists actually means any foreigner or also any NRI who has stayed outside the country for more than 6 months. So they will be able to avail this benefits as such. Also, the charges would be just 1.5 times of the base fare by the railways, and there will be around 200 per ticket more charged for services as such for IRCTC, Indian Railway Catering and Tourism Corporation. So this is the news now. Then the next news item is now new social security net plan. So this we have been doing for some time now, that social security network, a universal social security network would be introduced by the government. So again, this plan has been brought forth. This will be for workers in both formal and informal sector. So this plan is still being worked on. And also regarding Employees Provident Fund Security Network, it has been stated that there are around 4.8 crore contributory members to this, where employers both contribute 12% each. So this is the Employees Provident Fund. Another point raised is regarding IT employees. It says services of thousands of IT employees in the country are being terminated. So this was a question raised in the House, because now the session has been initiated. In the monsoon session has been initiated as such of the parliament. So IT employees services are being terminated. So question was raised to the Labour Minister that what are they doing, as they have no control over IT companies and multinational corporates. So here the Labour Minister accepted that the laws which are there for social security, they are applicable to those like who have a maximum salary of 15,000 per month. So of course, the Employee Provident Fund benefits eligibility is not there for these IT employees, but the government says that we will provide social security to IT workers and employers also. So steps would be taken, has been assured. Then the next news item is IIITs now institutes of national importance. So this is regarding triple ITs, not IITs, IIITs. So these are Indian Institutes of Information Technology. So now Lok Sabha has passed a new bill which will allow for public-private partnership route instituted IITs also to get national institutes of national importance status. So this Institutes of National Importance status has already been given to five IIITs which are functioning under Ministry of Human Resource Development. So now others which are there under PPP will also be provided this Institutes of National Importance status. And the government has defended PPP in education sector here too, saying that PPP does not mean that there will be a fee hike. He says that there can be other sources of revenue for educational institutions too. They can raise funds from research grants and projects as well. So this is a point being made as such. And he says that PPP model is required in education too, because the amount of, the amount of investment which should be there to make education competitive and increase employability calls for PPP model. So this is the government's stake. So in health, in education too, we are seeing public-private partnership model being brought in and endorsed as such. So here, this is already in place. This PPP model has been established. The IITs, the details are provided. Still, presently as such, there are 23 IITs in the country. And 5 of them are established, funded and managed by Ministry of Human Resource Development, and remaining are under PPP model. So these are the IITs which are under the Ministry of Human Resource Development are mentioned here. These are the 5 IITs under this. And new IITs were set up after this Indian Institutes of Information Technology Act of 2014 was passed. So under these IITs were formed, and this act actually also provided for Institute of National Importance status to IITs which are under Ministry of Human Resource Development. This new bill which has been passed by Lok Sabha presently is a bill which is seeking to provide this Institute of National Importance status to PPP IITs also, public-private partnership IITs. So this is there. This PPP model as such in education is that central, state and industry will have the partnership ratio of 50%, 35% and 15%. So 15% is industry partners share as such. Then the next news item is China shows zero tolerance to sovereignty threats. So this is overall China's assertiveness on territorial issues. So it has insisted on withdrawal of Indian troops from Doklam Plateau, as we have seen that it's been more than a month since the standoff is going on here, and it has kept this as a precondition for negotiations. So same way we are also seeing even on Tibet, Taiwan and South China Sea too, China has been quite assertive about its territorial claims. South China Sea we have discussed quite often, the 9-dash line as such. Tibet issue is also with respect to Dalai Lama too. When he visits particular country too, even when he visited Arunachal Pradesh, voices were raised by China that they should not be allowed. Even in Mongolia, when he had visited recently on a religious visit, China had blocked trade with its neighbor, Mongolia. So Mongolia completely depends, almost completely depends on China for trade, but then there were restrictions imposed on it to teach it a lesson. As such it was stated. So this also we have seen because of Dalai Lama's visit. So even presently Dalai Lama is visiting Botswana in Africa, and so here again in this context also again China is raising its voice on its stand on Tibet, that Tibet cannot be given independence. Dalai Lama is the political and religious head of Tibet. So Tibet Autonomous Region. So here also the unrest which has been seen. And Dalai Lama actually had fled from Tibet in 1950s and he was given asylum by India. He lives in India in Dharamshala, Himachal Pradesh. So Dalai Lama's issue is also a concern. He has been called by the Chinese quite often for talks in China, but he has never visited, saying that he is sure that it will not be good. Like he has his own fears of not believing China and accepting such proposals. So this is regarding Tibet and Dalai Lama. Taiwan also we have seen Taiwan issue which was there with US also when Taiwan president. Taiwan is actually independently functioning. It has an independent government, but China claims its one China policy under which it claims that Taiwan is part of China. So Taiwan is not a separate country. It also in sports events, international sports events, Taiwan participates as Chinese Taipei. So it cannot have its independent name and identity as such. So that's what China wants, though it functions independently. However, for economically, it is dependent in the sense for trade relations. China is a major partner. So of course, it is having dependence on China, but politically, it is an independent nation which is governed. So So you cannot call it independent. So USA also is now initiating steps. It has been planning to reopen naval port calls with China. So port of calls which are there. So such port of calls will be reopened with Taiwan. That is what US is planning. So on this also China has taken an assertive stand that it cannot go ahead with such policies. So it is putting pressure on US also now. So these are some of the cases in which China is showing its assertiveness and defiance is not accepted. So India is also facing one such issue here. That is the territory which China claims, Doklam region, but Bhutan says it is our territory. So it's basically a disputed territory, but China is assertive, no, this is our territory, you have to move out. So that's the point. So here the details about the standoffs as such are also given. So it was 1962, one war which India and China have fought, 1962 war. It was after 1959 when Dalai Lama was given asylum by India too. So this is there. Then the next news item is India hit by 34 ransomware attacks, Minister tells Lok Sabha. So this we have already discussed. We know about WannaCry, Petya and CERT-in, which gives its regulations on how to tackle such cyber attacks. Also you have to report to CERT-in if such attacks takes place, and also it gives a list of preventive measures to ensure that such attacks do not affect you, cyber attacks. So these are the details regarding that. These were 2 ransomware attacks and they had charged ransom in bitcoins. All this we have already discussed. So this was to a question in the Lok Sabha, answer being given. So there are different types of cyber attacks which are shown here too. This also we have discussed as such. During the time, there were 2 attacks. You can see WannaCry and then Petya, or not Petya as it is also called. These 2 attacks took place in the month of May and June respectively. So worldwide many computers were affected, but overall in India 34 such incidents of infection were reported is the response as such given in the parliament by the minister here. So this is there. Then the next news item is US Senate Committee for Bigger Indian Role in Afghanistan. So this is regarding a report which has been submitted before the US Senate. Senate is the upper house of US. It is called the most powerful upper house in the world. The upper house in India is Rajya Sabha. So upper houses generally don't have significant powers. The lower houses are powerful, but in USA Senate has significant powers. Even appointments have to be approved by the Senate. So that is there. So US Senate Committee as such, many appointments. So the Senate Committee has called for bigger Indian role in Afghanistan. So it is calling for India-Afghan defense relations to be strengthened as such. So it has stated that even India's assistance should be sought in Afghanistan where there is a neutral as such, a critical role as such which India can play because there is a stalemate in Afghanistan presently. So to break the stalemate, India can be roped in. So USA needs partners and India has been called for as such. But then it is stated that India is not actually very enthusiastic about this such joint patrols and is cautious about expanding cooperation with the Afghan government too. So that is that, though India has a strategic partnership agreement with Afghanistan, but the military component as such is limited. So this is being raised. We have also been seeing that Afghan president keeps making requests for defense equipments, but India has been reluctant so far about strong relations or having major military deals and aspect in the relations as such. So this is there. Also another thing is that in 2012, Defense Technology and Trade Initiative between India and USA have also been initiated, and the Senate actually calls for stronger defense relations between the 2 nations. We have already seen, we have also been given the status of major defense partner by USA as well. And these are various arms deals and joint projects which are going on between India and USA. The exercises too, we can see combat exercises, Malabar exercise which just got concluded, and these are various bilateral pacts, Defense Technology and Trade Initiative of 2012. Then this India-US Defense Relationship Framework for 10 years came in 2015. Then Joint Strategic Vision for Asia Pacific and Indian Ocean region has been brought forth in 2015. And also India designated as a major defense partner recently to facilitate defense technology sharing. So this was there, and LEMOA, which we have signed with USA. So this is Logistics Exchange of Memorandum Agreement of 2016. So all this we have already discussed quite often. LEMOA also we have discussed in detail. So this is being stated here. Then the next news item is BBC under fire for racial gender pay gap. So BBC is actually British Broadcasters Corporation. It's a publicly funded channel. It's UK's government funded channel, means it's the taxpayers who are funding BBC, and details have been asked by the government that BBC should give the details about how much it pays as salary to its various actors and presenters. So when these details came forth, it has unleashed a national debate about fame, gender and race. That based on gender, salaries differ, and based on race also. It is the white actors and broadcast presenters who are getting maximum salary. Some of them are getting salaries as high as the Prime Minister of Britain, UK also, or sometimes even more than the Prime Minister of UK. So this has come forth now. It is also stated that this is an intentional step taken by the government to bring this all out in the open and to undermine BBC as such. So these are also there. Then the next news item is Airport Authority of India to bear CAPEX, capital expenditure for 2 airports. So there are demands to rope in private developers for 2 airports of Jaipur and Ahmedabad. But then Airport Authority of India has now stated that the capital expenditure which would be undertaken. So capital expenditure means for major infrastructure building as such, the expenditure which is done is called capital expenditure. So there are 2 aspects in expenditure, capital and current. So capital expenditure means major investment in infrastructure, etc., which will take long time to give returns. And current expenditure means for day-to-day various activities, operations and maintenance, whatever activities expenditures required, that is current expenditure. So now it has been stated that capital expenditure will be taken care of by Airports Authority of India for these 2 airports, and the private sector which will be roped in for private sector for the development of these airports will have to concentrate on operations and maintenance only. That expenditure will be taken care of by them. So the privatization will be taking place in such a way. So actually this is against the model which has been brought in Delhi and Mumbai airports. So in Delhi and Mumbai airports, the PPP which is there and the 2 private sector entities, it's actually a conglomerate, GMR, a consortium, GMR and GVK respectively in Mumbai, Delhi and Mumbai. Delhi it is GMR and Mumbai it is GVK. So these 2 consortiums as such are undertaking the capital expenditure as well for Delhi and Mumbai airports. So that is how privatization has taken place here, but that is not how Jaipur and Ahmedabad would be privatized. So the government stand is that to make the deal more attractive, this is what we have proposed. So it's open to debate. The next news item is ONGC gets nod to buy government's 51% in refiner HPCL. So government has now approved the sale of 51.1% stake which it has in oil refiner HPCL to ONGC. So HPCL is also a public sector undertaking and ONGC is also a public sector undertaking. So government stake in this PSU is 51.11% presently. So government will give up this entire stake. But this entire stake will not be given up to for open bidding, but it will be ONGC will be taking this over. So this will be paid off by ONGC. Amount of 26,000 to 30,000 crore would be paid by ONGC. So government has put a target of raising money through disinvestment. So disinvestment in public sector undertaking. So it has a target of raising 72,500 crore through disinvestment in this current financial year. So it is falling short of its target, and now with ONGC taking over stake of government in HPCL, it will pay this much amount to government, which will be 40% of this target. So it will be helping the government in achieving this target of disinvestment. So means ONGC will pay money to the government. So it was also stated that since ONGC is only taking control of this entity, so there is no need for it to come up with an open offer. So it's exempted. So just same, it will be handing over. So a PSU handing over to another PSU. But then the money is going somewhere. Money is going to the government. So this investment corpus actually goes to a national investment fund. And this national investment fund has to spend 75% of the money here on social sector. like health, education, etc. So when then money is coming forth and we are privatizing health sector too, we are privatizing, bringing in privatization in education sector too, claiming that we don't have enough fund corpus amount to implement schemes in this. So there are no major radical schemes coming forth for social sector initiatives, and health and education are two major sectors where we need to bring up initiatives. But there is no radical change which is brought in these two sectors. So that is what is lacking in the government's initiatives. Steps which are taken to raise money, bring money, increase taxation. But after all these steps, what needs to be seen is changes on these two sectors, that is health and education. So that is very, very important. So this is there. Then the next news item is BharatNet deadline pushed to March 2019. So this is regarding BharatNet project. So now this BharatNet project is actually a new name given to NOFN, National Optical Fiber Network. So this was a project to bring in high-speed broadband connectivity to all 2.5 lakh gram panchayat through optical fiber network. So that was an initiative taken. So this was initiated in 2011 and it was planned that in 3 years, till 2013 this would be done. But then the deadline had to be extended till 2015 as such, and this was during the former UPA government. When NDA government came to power, it re-examined this entire project and set new target for its complete rollout. So of course initiatives had already been taken, so the target was kept as end of 2016. But then this could not be implemented, and that's why the deadline was again further delayed to December 2018 now. So it has been renamed also. NOFN has been renamed as BharatNet project, and the deadline from 2016 was delayed to December 2018, and now again this deadline has been pushed to March 2019. So this is the news that the cabinet has approved that the second phase of the BharatNet project will be delayed. So this will be pushed to March 2019. So in the first phase, what was planned was that 1 lakh gram panchayats should be provided with optical fiber broadband connectivity. So here it is seen that only 22,000 gram panchayats have been provided with internet connectivity, and others are actually not covered because of equipment procurement issues. So optical fiber network has been laid, but then it has not been put into effect. Internet connectivity has not come to all 1 lakh, only 22,000. And in the second stage, there will be remaining 1.5 lakhs which have to be covered. So now the second phase has been delayed. And the funding which comes for this BharatNet project or even NOFN is to the USOF, which we have discussed quite often now, Universal Service Obligation Fund. So we'll see it once again here, it's mentioned. So this USOF corpus comes from the payment which the telecom companies have to do. The telecom operators every year contribute 5% of the adjusted gross revenue to this fund. And this fund is used for rural telephony, to bringing in connectivity in the rural areas. So this is the USOF. And this is regarding the BharatNet project. And the former NOFN too, the details are provided here. So there is a special purpose vehicle also established called BBNL, Bharat Broadband Network Limited, under NOFN. Then the next news item is NCLT reserves order on IBC petition against Bhushan Steel. So this is regarding National Company Law Tribunal and the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Court. Both of these we have discussed quite often in detail. Presently, what is being stated is this case which has come forth before NCLT regarding Bhushan Steel and Power and Bhushan Steel. Both these cases which have been initiated by SBI and Punjab and National Bank. So there are big defaulters here, but cases were not initiated by them because the alternative methods were used by these banks to bring forth the converting the NPAs into performing assets. But now after RBI has been given powers through an ordinance, RBI has brought in initiatives and insolvency proceedings have been initiated by these banks. Even the NCLT judge actually questioned that why RBI had to issue directions to the bank to initiate bankruptcy proceedings. So this is there. So here in the last news item, we'll get the details regarding this too. So actually initially the banks, the steps which they were taking were to revive these non-performing assets. But now it is seen, since revival is not working, what needs to be done is that these non-performing assets need to have change in hands also, that the authority which, or the company which is holding these assets, have to give them up, and they should be taken over by an entity which can make them profitable. So such drastic steps are now being taken after the RBI has been given powers through this ordinance. Banking Regulation Act has been amended through an ordinance by the government. So now these drastic steps are being taken. So this is actually a study by a report by CRISIL, the credit rating agency of India. So it says that banks will have to take a haircut of 60%. So haircut means they will have to cut from their profits actually. So because they will have to settle the stressed assets. So stressed assets with a debt of 4 lakh crore are actually with 50 large stress. These are 50 large stressed assets which actually come to 4 lakh crore rupees. Overall, if you look at the non-performing assets in the banking system in India as of March 2017, it is 8 lakh crores in the Indian banking system. And out of this, half of it, 50% is with these 50 companies, 50 stressed assets, which is 4 lakh crore. So if these have to be settled as such, then the banks will have to take a haircut of 60%, is what this report says. So these 50 companies are also majorly from metal sector, construction sector and power sector. So you can see 30%, 25% in terms of total debt, and power sector 15%. So these companies from power sector may have to take a moderate haircut, but metals and construction sectors NPAs will have to have aggressive steps taken. So this is being stated, and it says 60% haircut because banks have already made provision for 40% of this exposure. So since these assets have become non-performing, and they have been non-performing for some time now, so banks are already making provision for these assets. So means they have to keep aside that money, that okay, it's not coming from this asset, so we'll have to keep aside that money, because it's eventually the deposits, the money which is deposited with the banks, which the bank is using for giving loans. So it has to make provision for these, because deposits can be demanded as such by any time by the customers. So this is there. So that's what it is stated, that after the promulgation of this ordinance empowering the RBI, now focuses on optimum debt reduction, including through potential transfer of assets to a different management that can bring in resources needed to scale up cash flows. So such drastic steps will now be taken. So here the sectors and the haircuts required are also provided. So these are the news items. Thank you.